All right, guys, it's time again for some more game reviews. Today we're going to be going over our game from yesterday, which was the 19th of May. This was, yeah, I think this was round three. Yep, round three of four. Only got 1 week left. We had some good games here. One of my particular favorites is we're going to be reviewing is going to be over Jason Loving's game, but that's going to be the third game we're going to review. Let's go ahead and take a look at our first one, which is with JP versus Chris Norman. And I guess we'll call this the stolen game since JP told me whenever he emailed me this. He said, I think I stole this game. So let's go ahead and take a look at this game that JP played as white versus Chris Norman. Yeah, let's take a look. So JP's playing with the white pieces. We have d4, d5, a pawn to c4. If you didn't know, JP is an old school player. We're doing the d4 and c4, Queen's Gambit kind of ideas over here. Pawn to e6, knight to c3, pawn to c5, and I definitely like Chris's spirit. He goes c5 over here. He's going to be playing for the Tarrasch, a very active opening here. C takes d5, E takes d5, safety first. One of the things I do like about JP, a very safe and positional player. I mean, he sticks with his d4 ideas, right? Knight to f3, knight to c6, and g3. I think this is definitely one of the best ways to play against Tarrasch. I mean, I guess with my limited experience with d4, but against this isolated pawn, I think it's always a good idea to go ahead and fianchetto because, well, against isolated pawn, if at least whenever you do get this isolated pawn, the best idea you have is to attack your opponent. So fianchettoing is definitely going to help you out. It's going to put this bishop on the targeting this isolated pawn, but also give you some extra protection for the king because as I said, whenever you have the isolated pawn, you want to make sure that your king is safe. So that's their one big plan, so why not stop it, right? So knight to f6, bishop g5, nice development here, bishop e6, bishop g2, bishop e7. It looks like it's already giving white a good plus here. I'm not sure if this move order that Chris used was the best. I did a little research on the Tarrasch. At the highest level, I didn't like it so much because obviously playing down a pawn as black, going to isolate pawn as black maybe is not the best choice for you. So, yeah, here it's already giving white a good positional advantage. Although I'm not sure if it's just saying that like on the regular. Just like if you play the King's Indian as black, it's always saying white is pretty much up a pawn the whole time, even though we see plenty of games with Kasparov and all these other strong players like Nakamura just destroying other strong GMs. So castles here, castles. D takes c5, perfect timing over here. Pawn to d4, interesting move right here. Typically you would just go ahead and take back, and I don't know why he doesn't just take back right away. This is an aggressive opening, and he's obviously an aggressive player, so d4 attacking the knight. I'm definitely playing, oh, he took on f6 first. Okay, I'm definitely playing knight to a4, but bishop takes f6 is definitely the computer's move, so nothing wrong with that move at all. Nice move by JP. Bishop takes, and then knight e4. Okay, so that's the idea. Putting pressure on this bishop to make some more trades, and also defending this pawn on c5. Yeah, this just looks like a free pawn now that white can now just try and defend. Of course, you have your rook c1 ideas and hopefully building up with b4 and a3. But this center pawn is nothing to sneeze at as it is keeping this e pawn backwards. Bishop back to e7, trying to put pressure back on the c5 pawn. Queen to a4. Okay, developing the queen, also preparing for this, b4 idea, saying I'm going to hold on to my pawns, try and stop me. Bishop f5, trying to remove the defender so that we can get the c5 pawn. Knight to d6, interesting move there. Yeah, the move I'm looking at right now, which I'm surprised JP doesn't just play, is just a simple move of this knight f to d2, bringing the knight to a good square, defending the knight, which is going to go ahead and keep defending this pawn. In the future, hopefully, you'll get this b4 move in, and now you even have a nice plus about playing maybe knight c4, and you can either jump one of these knight to d6. Of course, if they ever trade, well then, you're taking away the bishop pair, and you're still holding on to this c5 pawn. So it's interesting that JP chose not to go down this route. Instead, he decides to give back the pawn, and yeah, he's just going. He's just giving back the pawn to get rid of this bishop pair. Knight to d6. JP still has a good clean advantage here, as his opponent does have the isolated pawn still. Bishop takes, of course. Pawn takes. Queen takes. I assume he's going to put pressure on the d4 pawn right now. Rook after d1. I think this is definitely the correct rook. Yeah, when you're looking at these kind of situations, you're always trying to figure out which rook goes where. It's usually pretty easy to figure out as long as you think about which rook you're going to be moving first. I mean, here I definitely want to put a rook on the c file, and I definitely want to put a rook on the d file. With that being said, you'll see that the a rook here will go naturally, and the f rook will go here naturally. Of course, if you put the a rook to d1, then you'll see that this rook can't go to c1, right? They can't jump over. So this is definitely looks like the right way to develop. Rook after d1. d4 looks very weak. There's even e3 plans about adding more pressure on this pawn. Rook after d8. Here, maybe just a simple idea of rook to d2. Yeah, rook d2. Let's just double up. I mean, this is why a lot of people don't like playing with these isolated pawns or playing against them, because, you know, it's such a simple plan. Why black has this isolated pawn, let's just keep attacking it. It's up to black to be very creative here and either get rid of his pawn or at least start a kingside attack, which, again, against fianchetto pawn structures, this is not so simple. So pawn to a6, queen to d1. Ooh, I can't say I like that move too much. It's definitely an interesting move here. Computer suggesting a few different ideas, which, yeah, definitely computer moves for me. I guess this a6 idea with the plan of b5 is a pretty good try here. Computer is giving rook c1. And maybe even knight to h4. But it's a very slight advantage here. I think for most humans are thinking that white's just much better in this position. And of course, well, I did mention this e3 move, but you have to be a little careful as probably d3 will get played. And yeah, it's already saying after d3, it's getting to equality, which is very interesting because this is a pass pawn at this point, which is getting even better than a regular isolated pawn, right? It's a pass pawn. So this guy actually has hopes of actually getting across the board, although white still has plenty of chances to try and stop him. So queen to d1. I'm not a big believer of this move, but I definitely understand it. Rook to d7. Looks like Chris is getting ready to double up his rooks and make sure that this d4 pawn is defended. Knight h4, attacking the bishop. Bishop to e6. Bishop to e4. Hey, how's it going, Yak? Pawn to g6. Knight back to f3. An interesting maneuver here. I'm not sure if I love this idea of bringing the bishop outside. It looks like it's just vulnerable to trades now. I would think bishop d5 looks like a decent idea here, but maybe that's exactly what JP is wanting in this situation. Well, I don't see much. I'm just reviewing these games from yesterday. Actually, if you want to, you can. If you send me the PGN, I'd love to go over it real quick, if you don't mind. Rook after a to d8. I still haven't seen your game. Queen to a4. Yeah, it's definitely a little bit of cat and mouse here. Knight e5. And, oh, okay. Yeah, nice little tactical trick here by Chris. Of course, you can't play the rook takes d4 here, as after knight takes f3 check, bishop takes, you're going to look a little embarrassed here. So, knight e5, making some trades. Knight takes on d4, and it gives us as equality. Interesting. Looks like you're just down a pawn. Well, what was Chris's idea here? Pawn b5, queen back to d1, knight c4. Ah, now this does look like a problem idea right here. Oh, okay, cool. Thank you. I'll go ahead and click on this link later after my game reviews. Oh, maybe I can't. Oh wait, I think I can control V this. I think. Oh no, control C. Control C. Still learning how to be a computer dude. All right, knight takes e6. Whoa, and now it gives black a clear advantage here. Queen takes e6. Yeah, it looks like Chris just misses a winning idea here, which is just knight takes d2. And look at this beautiful tactic right here. If you do take back on d8, don't take on e4, which is just an equal game. But knight to f3 check right here, and now you're going to be winning the exchange, and you win the knight at the end. Yeah, so you're just going to be up the exchange here. Wow, what a nice tactic here that Chris could have played in his game. Missed opportunities. Oof. Well, as I said, Chris unfortunately did not play this. He ends up just playing queen takes e6, and now I'm sure JP is happy. Rook takes, gotta save this bishop, so maybe queen c2. Oh, bishop d3, okay. Knight takes b2, queen c2, knight takes, and pawn takes. Let's take a look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep. Pawns are now equal, although, of course, now white has the isolated pawn here. Funny how things changed around here. And it's definitely giving black a better plus in this game. Yeah, I definitely like black in this game. I'm going to go ahead and probably play like rook d4, queen d6, put pressure on the d pawn while I slowly push these pawns forward and look for any kind of weaknesses. Yeah, I'm definitely liking this as black. Let's see how Chris does this, though. Rook d6, don't like it. Queen c3, queen d5. Yeah, I want to put the rook in front of the queen, so it's more realistic chances of actually taking on d3 here. I mean, yeah, no, I definitely like the rook in front of the queen. Okay, so rook to e1, little checkmate threat there. Make sure he's still awake. Yep, he's awake. He plays f6, although I must say I don't like this move either. Here, I would either be looking at playing rook back to d8. Here, it's also giving queen c6 to maintain the advantage here for black. It's -7 if queen to d4. Wow, -0.7. But after f6, it goes from -0.7 to +0.7. This f6 move is, although it's a natural kind of looking move, it's just opening up the king side here, and now I'm sure white's going to get some nice attacking chances. Let's see what JP does with this newfound weakness. Rook e8 check. Computer was giving queen c8 check as the top move. So rook e8 check, king g7, and now it says winning by force, +2. Queen c8, queen takes d3, and checkmate in 3 here for white. See if anybody can spot this one. I'm going to see if I can find it. Let me see here. It's check, check. Okay, here we go. So, nice and simple. Rook g8 check. He played king f7 here, which is an easy checkmate in 1 right there. But after king h6, now we have queen to h3 check. And look at this beautiful little mate here. I looked at queen h4 the first time. It's like, oh yeah, don't forget pawns can move over here. Pawn to f4, check and mate. King h6. It's important that you see this queen h3 check. Bless you, G. So pawn f4, a very nice checkmate right here. As I said, the game did end with this queen e8 checkmate, the 2-move mate. I definitely would have preferred the other one, but yeah. A very nice game here by JP. I think it went down to the wire for this game also. All right, so let's go and take a look at the next game. This next game is, actually, it's going to be my game. So I played against Brian Taylor. Oops, let me go ahead and reset that. Hopefully all the games are still kind of encased. Okay, cool. All right, back to my game. Oops, nope, that's not right. There we go. All right, back to my game over here. I was playing the black pieces. I played against Brian Taylor. He played a very good game and an interesting variation. Hey, Charles, how's it going? So here we go. Brian started off with pawn to d4. I played knight f6, and then he played knight c3. This is definitely Brian Taylor style. In fact, there's like one of the openings he plays is called like the Taylor defense. So yeah, of course he's gonna play it. This is really interesting to play this d4 knight c3. It's funny. Although this may look a little weird, it's actually pretty decent too. And a lot of people will get into some very bad variations against this very fast. One of the main ideas of this knight c3 move is that white's trying to play e4 right away. So if you allow them, they definitely will. So if you play something like d6, e4 gets played. If you play g6, e4 again gets played. And white just gets a very strong center here for no good reason. White just is going to claim an advantage of the center. And, you know, who doesn't want the center? So here I saw that this was going to be happening. He played his knight c3 idea. I knew he had prepped for me because, you know, he told me he was going to prep for me, and I pretty much expected it. So against anyone who preps for me, I always like to try and play a sideline. So I went ahead and played pawn c5. And white definitely can get a good game here. But they have to go into the Baoni lines, which I know pretty well. And white would have to play d5 here. And the theory goes on for quite a bit. Unfortunately for Brian, he doesn't really know the Baoni as much as I do. So I was going to feel very comfortable playing this against him because he's going to have to figure out all these different ideas. Well, you know, I'm going to be able to play through this quite fast, especially the opening moves. So, Brian went ahead and just played what he knew. He went up and played d takes c5. Definitely not the best move in the position, but I think a very good practical choice for him. I played pawn to e6. Hey, pushy pushes up here. Yeah, feel free to go ahead and jump in here, guys, and check out the link if you want to check out the May games. It's inside me. You can look me up at Jesse James 88 on Lichess, and this is a public study for May. And I also have San Antonio Club Championship on here too. So feel free to look at all the games. This is all public knowledge. So bishop to f4. And of course, we're just going to go ahead and take on c5 here. I wasn't too sure with these kind of variations, but you know, if you try to play like b4 and hang on to these pawns, there's plenty of ways that you can get rid of these guys. So I don't even think there's a good way to even hold on to the pawn right now. So bishop f4, bishop takes c5, pawn to e3, pawn d5. You know, when you're playing black, I don't think you can really complain too much when you get this position. We're already on move 5, and you know, I have a very decent center, and I've got my pieces. I got 2 pieces developed, so I definitely was not complaining after this opening, especially since I didn't really prep too much for this game. Knight to b5, a nice barbaric threat of knight to c7 check. I like it because even though it's barbaric, it's a strong idea. You know, he's playing knight c7 check, and I just can't stop it other than playing knight to a6. The problem with this, of course, the knight on the rim is grim. My knight's going to be stuck here for quite a while. And this bishop and this knight over here are just really annoying on my dark squares. Later on, you'll see how I problem solve for this. But first things first, I am a disciple of Morphy, which means I'm going to go ahead and castle and develop my pieces as soon as possible. He plays c3 here. You know, this is a very interesting move. I wasn't too sure. I mean, I understand why he played it, but I think it's because he's very used to these kind of pawn structures. I won't say I like it so much, but I definitely understand why he played it, and I don't think it was the strongest continuation here. So he plays pawn c3. I'm going to go ahead and castle, of course, because again, let's castle, get my king to safety, and then we'll start making some plans. Knight f3. And then a nice little quiet move here, bishop to d7, developing with a threat here. I had someone ask me about what the threat was, and the threat's not just about attacking the knight, which is obviously already being defended. The idea is about developing with a tempo. So this is a very common idea in the Queen's Gambit, right? Like anytime you take on the Queen's Gambit, you wait till after they move the bishop. And this is almost the exact same kind of idea. Let's see. Hey, Coach, do you have the pairings for next Wednesday? I don't have them on me, but Robert Green already shared them. I can show them to you afterwards if you like. Pawn to a4. So the idea of this one is, which I think a4 by Brian was a very good move here. If he plays like bishop d3, my idea was to go ahead and take now, get rid of the strong knight, and after bishop takes b5, now I get to play queen b6, attacking this bishop. And so now you see that I've got a nice little tempo here. The bishop, it's not so simple just to move it backwards as the b2 pawn will hang. And if you try to play something like a4, I'm very happy to play like knight c7. And if you trade, well, again, I'm just very happy with these kind of things. And you best believe that I'm going to be going pawn hunting because I'm already castled over here. Ooh, I got to be careful because this knight is hanging. But yeah, I'm just always trying to make as many problems for my opponent as possible. Especially since for both of us, we were out of theory or known ideas by as soon as move 5. So knight e4 gets played, and this actually goes into my idea. Oh, real quick note, that's the reason why, I believe that's the reason why he played a4. It keeps the knight stable here, so the bishop takes b5. Bishop takes b5 won't be as strong now because you can take with your bishop, although I definitely think taking back with the pawn is the best move because now after the knight moves away, now you see that white's going to have very good pressure on the a7 pawn, and this is a backwards pawn here that I just will not be enjoying for the rest of the game. So with that being said, I go ahead and play knight to e4. The new idea is, well, this diagonal is very, very weak. This diagonal was very, very weak for me, and I'm trying to achieve e5, and it's not so simple just to play rook e8 because, again, he has already two attackers here. So I want to go ahead and go with this standard plan that I've seen in other openings, which is to play f6, e5, and take the center. It seemed pretty reasonable to me, so why not, right? Bishop g3 gets played. Pawn to f6, going ahead and continuing with my plan. Castles. King h8. Here I did have the interesting move, if you are curious, about playing pawn to e5 here. But I found a lot of interesting ways that white could play this. Although computer said e5 objectively was the best move. After e5, I was a bit nervous about this queen to b3 move here. But computer's just saying just play king h8 and you're going to be good. Obviously, if you try to take the pawn over here, now white is in a completely winning position after the simple queen takes d5 check, king h8, and then queen takes e4, threatening checkmate, pawn f5 to stop it, and queen takes f4. And white has a very active position and is just up a good pawn here. But it's more about the activity of the pieces here, and my king side's already looking a bit weak. That was the move that, when I was assessing this position, after e5 is the reason why I didn't play this. I calculated like bishop g3, and I was like, oh, here I would just simply go ahead and take, and h takes g3, and then play pawn to e4. Which is funny enough, you know, I thought I was winning here, but computer says, no, 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 Jesse. This is not winning because you just have the simple bishop c2 with the exact same plan of queen takes d5 over here. Actually, this plan is actually very, very crazy that, I mean, if you're seeing this and someone plays it against me, I'm going to just call you a cheater because this is just insanity. Check this out. Queen takes d5 check, king to h8, and it gives b4. Wow, it's saying just to sacrifice the bishop here. Of course, I'm not going to do that as a human. I'm going to play bishop b6. And now it says rook fd1 and white's just winning. So, yeah, this is one of those special positions where you give up a piece and then you win it back with compensation. That's not, yeah, a very, very crazy line that I didn't even look at. I would have thought I would just be winning a piece after the pawn fork. And there's many lines with this, but the whole basis is that the d5 pawn is hanging in check in mostly all these variations. That's why you saw me just play the simple king to h8. Now, I probably could have played e5 and tried to make this idea work, but I was fairly confident that by playing this, just by playing king h8, I could still get a good position and still, you know, hopefully win the game here. So I don't need to go in to these crazy complications. So knight to d2 got played. Pawn to e5. Bishop g3. Knight takes. H takes. Of course, taking back toward the center. And then knight to c7 here. Definitely not the best move, but I mean, again, I'm always going to try and get my pieces that I'm always going to try and get my pieces to the best square. So knight c7 just seems like a reasonable move to me. The knight on the rim is grim, so I want to play knight c7 and just either run it back to the center or trade off for a better piece, as the knight has been a thorn. I got rid of the bishop, which was annoying me in the opening. Now I'm going to get rid of this knight that was also annoying me in the opening. Everybody from the opening must go, right? It's a little mob hit over here. I'm getting rid of all these pieces that were bothering me. So knight c7, and here I saw the potential of a kingside tackle, though after calculating it, I knew it wasn't the best idea. And yeah, here I was mostly worried about him trying to break my center, as the center is definitely my pride and joy, but the light squares are definitely a little bit weak here with e4 and c4. So e4 I was a little worried about, and c4 I was a little worried about, but definitely c4 I'm liking the best over here, just because of the activity, and also keeping this bishop open up over here. Luckily for me, I think Brian chooses the wrong plan here. He definitely should have gone queenside here, but instead he sees some kingside attacking chances, and he decides to go for that. So here we go. Queen to h5, threatening checkmate in 1. Luckily I saw it, and I played pawn to f5. Here you do have to be careful, as after e4, you're simply just losing to the simple tactic of bishop takes e4, and now you see that this guy is hanging. So f5 gets played, which is a move that I kind of wanted to play anyways. Knight takes c7, queen takes c7, pawn g4. Again, another move I was very happy to see. I didn't think this was too strong. I want to try and get my e4 move in, and I saw that this was going to be, it's going to be killing this bishop, so it'll stop a lot of kingside attacking chances. Here, what I was calculating and was a little bit worried about was this knight to f3 move, which if you play the common move of e4, now white has a slight advantage with knight to g5, and now you're looking at knight f7 checking ideas, and it gives time for the bishop to move away. Maybe the knight even comes back to h3, f4, where it looks like it's going to have a good home. Unfortunately for me, he did not play this. Again, instead he plays this pawn g4, which I was very happy to see. Here, let's cut off the bishop first. Bishop went back to e2, and now I'm going to go ahead and play pawn f4. I guess I could take on g4 here, although I didn't really think about that too much. I want to activate my rook, and definitely I want this bishop opened up to attack the pawn on f2. My dream is to double up rooks and just create a nice kingside attack, as my pieces are naturally attacking this way already, and have this very strong pawn center. So, bishop b8. So here I did miss playing f4 right away, and this is one of those moves again where I saw I could play f4, but it's a very sharp variation. For instance, after f4, queen takes d5 has to be analyzed right away, because it's not like you're just dropping something. It's queen takes d5, and then knight takes e4 is going to be played also. So queen takes d5, and now, yeah, it says play pawn takes on e3, and then knight takes e4. Computer's giving this as plus or negative 0.5 here, which yeah, it looks like a nice position here. Again, I just didn't feel too comfortable playing this. Maybe next time I'll try and calculate a little bit further in these lines. It gives e takes f2, king h1, and bishop b3. If I saw bishop e3, I might have been more inclined to play this, but I thought my bishop was going to get kicked off the diagonal with b4 and then a5, as you see trapping the bishop. This is where I stopped calculating, and I was like, I'm not too sure about this position. Maybe I should be more excited about this position, but in the other variations, I thought I was going to be getting a strong attack either way. And I had to give away my strong center here, which I didn't really want to do. So I played bishop b8. The queen moved back, and then I played f4. Again, I thought I was going to be getting something very similar to this. Pawn c4, a very good move by Brian, I think, dismantling my center pawns over here. Bishop c6, and apparently this is not the best. Computer wants me to go for this rook left idea, rook to f6. And here I did look at rook f6, but after g5, I didn't really see the idea about this. Computer's giving rook g6, which, maybe that's one of those easy moves that I just don't even consider. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, look, is this pawn just like weak here? Is this going to fall? And it's not so simple to defend this, is it? Oh, wow. Some of the simplest calculations are the hardest ones to do. Yeah, b4, a5 is a very interesting question to be played earlier. So if you do try to play for this b4, I guess the bishop has to run back to like d6. And so now, and I think this is why you didn't play this in the game, you're going to get this backwards pawn on open file here, which is going to become a target for me. So, yeah, I mean, if the bishop goes back to b6, then definitely a5 will get played, but, hopefully I won't fall for that, which I don't think I would. I had seen these kind of variations, and I was kind of hoping for this b4 to happen again, just so I can get this backwards c pawn over there. That was a question by Charles. So c4, bishop c6, pawn takes, bishop takes d5. I had a decent advantage, and it's kind of going away now. I thought this was pretty good for me still, because my bishops were very dominating, and we've started to open up this position. But Brian does a very good job on creating his counterplay. Rook to c1, developing with a threat. Queen b6. This move is to put pressure on e3, but mainly it's to try and entice Brian into playing this knight to c4 move, which looks very natural. And he plays it. He goes knight c4 here. And here I miss my winning idea. I'm supposed to take on c4 right away. I remember I had looked at this idea, and for some reason I decided to not play it after all. And I mean, after this next move, I believe White's just going to have the advantage for quite a while, and I'm just kind of struggling to maintain the advantage, if not the equality. I would say I'm struggling to maintain the equality here now for myself. Well, it's like I set up a trap, except I'm worse in the trap. So Queen went to f6, and now I'm actually in a worse position, at least if Brian plays correctly. Fortunately for me, he does miss the move here. He ends up playing Queen h5, which goes back to equality. But here, believe it or not, is now time to play e takes f4, so that after Queen takes f4, now you can play knight to e3. And the knight is beautiful here, putting pressure on the bishop and also the bishop over here. So now I have to trade away one of my bishops, and this knight is doing a very good job blockading. Yeah, most likely here, I don't even want to think. I know I had seen this variation, I just wasn't happy with it, but luckily I didn't have to deal with this. Again, he played Queen to h5, which is still a very interesting move here, putting pressure on both of the bishops over here. I'm actually kind of surprised there's not something stronger here for White. It's just giving equality. One of the other cool ideas which I'd seen is this g5, g6 idea. All of a sudden, I'm like, am I slowly getting outplayed here? Again, I thought Brian played very well this game. Rook a to d8, just developing and defending, getting my last piece into the game. Pawn g5, and pawn g6. I felt like this was almost a forced move right here to play g6, and White is having the advantage. There's quite a few variations here where my queen's just running out of squares to defend everything. Yeah, and then because this bishop is hanging, there's lots of variations where the knight moves away, and this rook will then be attacking the bishop. And it's giving queen e7 as equality, which, yeah, this is a very interesting idea. I think it's actually very similar to my game. I guess the only difference is that I played g6 first. Queen to h4. I had a feeling he'd play queen h4, although I thought g takes f6 was better, but having the bishop pair, I was happy enough to go into that, even though this was a slightly worse endgame. Queen to h4, queen to e7. Luckily, I found this nice idea here. Even though I'm going down a pawn, I should still be able to maintain equality. How is that? After he took back with the pawn, we played bishop takes, he played rook takes. But here the idea is, because I'm going to be going down the pawn, we need to go for activity. So we're going to go into opposite color bishops here. And this is one of the plans of this move, is after bishop takes c4, we're going to probably play pawn to e3. And so because of this e3 plan, that's why he takes on c4. If he does play bishop takes c4, which I was expecting, now I get this very strong move of e3. And it's not so simple just to take back, because, well, if you do, you're going to be losing a rook here. And all of a sudden, the dark squares become very weak in this position. And this is just giving a winning position, apparently, now to black, it says. I mean, winning the exchange looks good enough to me. So, I mean, if you can't capture back, what do you do? Because I'll take here if you let me. Yeah, White definitely has some problems here that they need to solve. Gives black a slight advantage as 0.2, but I would definitely like this position as black, as I feel there's a lot of attacking chances. Especially because I think at this point we were starting to get into a low time control. So the game continued. He played rook takes c4, which is the top move. Now e3 won't be as big a deal because we have the bishop blocking, and if the e3 gets played now, we just play pawn to f3. Or, actually, oops, that's not the backwards move I wanted. Let's go back to our position. After rook takes c4, if e3, computer is giving king h2, or bishop f3, which to me, I think those are kind of hard moves to find. Because, yeah, I would think f3 would be the move, but after f3, it looks like black's already starting to penetrate the position here. which is crazy because it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 against the 6 pawns over here. So down a pawn, but still having a decent position and making plenty of attacking chances uh, to maintain the equality. So after rook takes c4, which was a very good move by Brian, I played rook d2, attacking the bishop. I was hoping he would just move the bishop or defend it with the queen, but again, Brian, I don't know, had taken his vitamins that day and played the strongest move in the position, rook fc1. I was like, oh my gosh, this is just Brian, and he's ready for this game. He's playing the best moves. Rook fc1 is a beautiful move played. It was played quite fast too, so I was very impressed with this move too. I mean, it's funny, like during the game, I just wanted to be like, give him a knuckle bump and be like, this is a good game. But I feel like that'd be kind of awkward to do that. It's happened to me one time. I was playing a chess tournament, and I forget what it was. And I was playing like this other kid that was a 2000, very young kid. And we're playing a Najdorf, very complicated opening. And he looks up at the board and he says, this is a very complicated game. I'm probably going to lose. But will you go over the game after me with the game after the game? And I was like, sure, but the game's not over. Like, it was just kind of an awkward experience, but it was very a very nice compliment by this young expert, which I'm sure will be making master someday. But yeah, I had almost the same experience here with Brian. I was just want to give him a knuckle bump, but like, yeah, you're just playing a good game here. Win or lose, I can't complain. So pawn b6 was played. Yeah, and this is one of the nice ideas about it. Like, I can't take on e2. If you take on e2, rook takes c5. It feels like black should have an attack here, but rook to c7, c7's coming. There's checkmate threats, and white's just got too active here. So here I played pawn b6. I had seen b4 coming, but I didn't want to retreat the bishop. And, I'm not going to lie, I was hoping that Brian would miss it, right? Just hoping that your opponent misses stuff is not a bad thing, especially since I had planned already to play bishop d6 already. Well, again, Brian ate his Wheaties that day and plays pawn to b4. And now I'm just over here just on the ropes, just trying to swing back at him. Bishop to d6, guarding the c7 square. The bishop is now hanging, and now f4 is hanging. And here, queen to g4 gets played. Man, this is such a tough position, especially because we're both low on time here. Computer gives the crazy line as rook c8 as winning here. It's a crazy long line. At the end of it, you end up giving up this bishop, but you end up winning it back. It's like a 12-move combination. So I analyzed the game afterwards with Brian, mostly with the computer, and that's what it was telling me. Brian said he could find this, so yeah, I'll call you out on this one. I would love to see you find these kind of moves in a regular game, Brian. Unfortunately, Brian was low on time, so he did not find that move. I played queen g4, which is a normal move. Unfortunately, this one is just giving me the winning chances that the winning chances in this game. Rook takes f4, saying bring it on. Yes, I see that there's a check back here, but I don't see any mate. Prove it, right? Prove it. Queen h3 was played. And queen takes g5. Funny enough here, taking on g5, which was my main line, is actually not the best move here. Apparently now, computer's saying, now you take, and after rook c8 check, you just play rook back to f8. And in these lines, I was always scared about this idea. Rook takes, queen takes, and then playing queen to g4. Oh, wait a second, what was it? Rook to c8? Why is rook c8 not winning here? Because a rook e1 checkmate, yeah. These are the lines that are very, very hard to calculate, especially when you're low on time. But oh yeah, that's such a nice line, and it's very, very move specific. As you can see, I did not go into that line. I go ahead and just take the pawn and say, nope, I don't want to checkmate. Rook c8 check was played. King to g7, and then he played queen to c3 check, which I was very happy to see. Although I did miss this idea because it is second the rook, but luckily I just have the rook back here to defend everything. Here I did spot a nice forced variation here to bring my king into, how's it going, Slick Rub? Here we had a very nice way to bring my king into the center, although it does involve some some sacrifices. With that being said, I'm sure if Brian had more time on the clock, then he definitely would have solved this combination, which is rook c7 check, bishop takes, rook takes. Now h7 is being attacked, so you have to play like rook f7 here. But here you should probably see, oh, actually the line I thought was drawish was not. I thought rook takes, king takes, queen takes h7 check. Here, I mean, I say it's drawish, but it would be not too fun to run my king around in this position, especially low on time. Luckily, I guess my rook is being defended, so okay. But apparently, computer's giving this idea of queen to c3 check. Oops, wait a second. No, queen c3 check now. After rook f7, queen c3 check as a draw, or at least maintain the equality. Unfortunately, he did not see this. Again, he was low on time. And after king g7, he plays queen c3 check, rook f6, and after this, I just have a good advantage. I'm able just to maintain for the rest of the game. And here, again, he's low on time, so he's trying to play a little bit fast at this point too. Bishop c4, this is one of those pseudo threats. It's going to make a check right here, but unfortunately, there's not too much to it. At this point, I did calculate up until move. We're on move 35. I calculated up until move 43 here, which is a nice strategy to do whenever when your opponent's low on time and you're low on time, because you want them to be thinking in a fresh new position. And so, yeah, he lost a lot of time here because I had calculated so many moves ahead at this point, and I'd seen some winning variations, and he ends up falling for one of my traps. So, rook takes f2. He plays rook g8 check like I thought he was going to play. King h6. There's only one check in the position, so I calculated it. Check. Queen h5. Of course, if he trades down queens, I'm just going to be winning in this endgame, so I didn't assume he was going to do that. I assumed he was going to play queen e3 check, which is what he played. And here, I had already calculated my winning move, which was bishop to f4, which is a very nice little move here. It looks like you're going to be able to win this rook, but unfortunately, it's going to be losing. And here it's a forced variation because you can't just move your queen away anymore because I'll just take this rook. Here he ended up doing the best variation he could, which was queen takes, but after bishop h2 check, king f1, rook takes f2, king takes f2. This is going to be a winning game here. Although material looks equal in the position, the key factors are, well, I got an undefended rook over here, which I'm able to win at the end. And also I have a passed pawn and the dark square bishop. The fact that this is a light, this pawn's controlling the light squares, and I have a dark square bishop, and I have my queen, I was fairly confident that this was going to be an easy way to win the game. And yeah, here the computer gives -11. So queen h4 check got played, king e2, queen g4 check, looking to grab another pawn over here. Of course, it's very hard for him to run like king to d2 is bishop f4 check. So yeah, I just don't think there's any good escapes here and no decent variations. He played king f1, and after queen f4 check, forking the king and the rook, he goes ahead and throws in the towel here. As yeah, dropping this piece is going to be very bad. And I still have this passed pawn, and it says the computer says it's going to be a forced checkmate in 10. I don't think I would have done that, but I definitely would have going to find some good variations here. Unfortunately, guys, I'm out of time for today. I still got some more games to review, which I will go over tomorrow. Also, I'll be going over some of the games from Club Championship, which is tomorrow. So please stick with us and check that out with us tomorrow. All right, guys, I'm late for